So picture this. You sign a napkin in a bar, agreeing to sell your $50,000 car for $1 as a total joke.
Right, just having a laugh with friends.
Exactly. You're laughing. Everyone around you is laughing. But tomorrow, a judge might actually force you to hand over the keys.
It sounds crazy, but yeah, it happens.
It really does. Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today, we are looking at the terrifying reality of objective intent in contract law.
It is definitely a terrifying reality for a lot of law students, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our mission today is to translate all these dense legal concepts into simple, everyday English. We want to make sure you understand the absolute must-knows, especially if you are prepping for the MBE, the multi-state bar examination.
Yeah, and this topic, mutual assent, which is basically offer and acceptance, is Chapter 2 of your foundational contract law.
Right. So let's set the stage. When we talk about agreements, I think the romanticized ideal is this perfect meeting of the minds.
Right, like two people locking eyes and magically arriving at the exact same understanding of a deal.
Yeah, exactly. But when you step into the actual mechanics of contract law, relying on telepathy is just, well, a recipe for total economic collapse.
What's fascinating here is that the law had to completely abandon that approach. I mean, if the legal system relied on a truly subjective meeting of the minds, actually trying to prove what someone was secretly thinking, every single contract would be totally vulnerable.
Because someone could just say, hey, I have my fingers crossed.
Exactly, I was just kidding. So courts use an objective test. They don't care about your private internal monologue.
Right.
They are looking at the script, the actions, the emails, the words you spoke out loud.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's like reading the room, not reading minds, right?
That's a perfect way to put it.
But does that mean if I make a joke, I could accidentally get locked into a contract? Like the napkin example.
Well, it depends on the reasonable person standard. Would a reasonable listener, standing at that party, hearing your tone of voice, knowing the context, maybe seeing that you have a drink in your hand, would they take your dollar for a car joke seriously?
I mean, probably not if I'm laughing hysterically.
Right, if the context screams joke, then there is no mutual assent, no contract. But the trap springs when your outward behavior doesn't match your internal joke.
So if I deadpan it.
Exactly. If you deliver that joke with absolute sincerity, draw up a formal-looking napkin contract, sign it, hand over the keys, a reasonable person would likely conclude you are serious. Under the objective test, your secret punchline is legally irrelevant.
Wow. Your outward behavior creates a binding reality. That is intense.
It really is. And for you listening, mutual assent, the offer plus the acceptance is the very first major question you have to answer on almost every single contract's MBE problem.
Yeah, before you can argue about breaches or damages, you have to prove there was a deal in the first place.
Exactly.
So now that we know what mutual assent looks like from the outside, let's transition to the first step of actually melding it, making the offer. Why does an offer hold so much legal power?
Well, because an offer literally gives the offeree, the person receiving the offer, the power of acceptance.
The power of acceptance. That sounds like a superpower.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
You are essentially handing the other person a legal detonator. If they press the button and accept, you are instantly trapped in a legally binding relationship.
Oh, wow.
Because granting that power is such a huge deal, the law requires us to be absolutely certain you intended to do it. There are 3 mandatory questions for a valid offer.
Okay, lay 'em on me.
First, was there a promise or commitment? Second, were the terms definite? And third, was it communicated to the offeree?
Let's zero in on that first one, the intent to be bound. Because people talk all day, right?
Right.
We negotiate, we complain, we brag.
Right. There's a massive legal gulf between saying, I promise to sell you my lawnmower for $50, and saying, I would consider selling my lawnmower for $50.
Okay, so the first one, I promise, is a locked door that I'm handing you the key to.
Yes.
But the second one I would consider is just an invitation to negotiate. Like I'm opening the door and saying, do you want to make me an offer?
Exactly. Words of commitment versus mere invitations to deal. Price quotes are a huge trap here. If a contractor sends out a standard flyer that says, quote, new roof, $10,000, that is usually just an invitation to deal.
Right, because otherwise, if the price of shingles skyrockets, 1,000 people could just write, I accept on the flyer and bankrupt the poor guy.
Exactly. It lacks that specific commitment to a specific person.
Which naturally brings us to the ultimate trap, advertisement.
Oh, the MBE loves advertisements.
Why isn't a standard store flyer an offer? Like, if I see a TV in a Sunday paper for 200 bucks, my instinct is that they are offering it to me.
Because of exactly what you just said about the roofer, the risk of overacceptance. An ad goes out to 1 million people, but the store only has 50 TVs.
Oh, right.
If the ad was a legally binding offer, the moment 51 people walked in and said, "I accept," the store would be in breach of contract. So ads are generally viewed as invitations to make an offer.
Okay, so an ad is essentially a fishing lure. Just seeing it doesn't mean you caught the fish. You have to take the TV to the register, which is you making the offer, and the cashier ringing it up is the store accepting.
Perfect analogy.
But wait, so what does this all mean for those crazy Black Friday doorbusters? The ones people camp out for?
That is the big exception. An ad is an offer if it's clear, definite, and explicitly identifies the offeree or limits the quantity.
Like, first come, first served, one black leather coat, today only, for $1.
Precisely. Because the store knows their exact maximum exposure, one coat, $1. And the offeree is objectively identified as the first person in line.
Got it. So if you're taking the MBE, you have to look for that limiting language. Definite terms and commitment language mean it's an offer, not just an invitation.
Absolutely. Memorize that distinction.
Okay, so smoothly pivoting here. Let's say you've made a serious promise, but what exactly did you promise? That brings us to our second requirement, definite and certain terms.
Right? An offer has to be definite enough for a court to actually enforce it. If the judge doesn't know what the deal is, they can't help you.
What are the essential terms they're looking for?
Generally, the identity of the offeree, the subject matter, and the price. But, and this is a massive but for the exam, there is a crucial distinction between how the common law handles this and how the UCC handles it.
Oh, this is the big split, common law versus uniform commercial code.
Exactly. For real estate and services, which is common law, the rules are incredibly rigid. You absolutely must identify the land, and you must state the price. If you leave the price blank, the court will not guess for you. The offer fails.
Because land is unique, right? They can't just look up the market value of your specific emotional attachment to a farm.
Right, but for the sale of goods, tangible, movable items, we use Article 2 of the UCC. And the UCC has what we call magic gap fillers.
Magic gap fillers, I like that.
Because business moves fast. Merchants forget to write down every detail. So under the UCC, if you forget to state the price or the time of delivery, the court can actually step in and supply reasonable missing terms.
As long as the parties actually intended to make a contract, right?
Yes, exactly. Usually they'll just plug in the standard market price at the time of delivery.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. What about contracts where the quantity isn't an exact number? Because I thought quantity was the one thing the UCC couldn't magically fill in.
It generally can't. You need a quantity.
Yeah.
But the MBE loves to test requirements contracts and output contracts.
Right. Like if I say, I'll buy all the laptops my company needs this year from you, that's a requirements contract.
Yes. And an output contract is the seller saying, I'll sell you every single laptop I produce this year.
But there's no actual number there. How is that definite?
Because the quantity can be objectively determined by looking at the actual good faith operational needs of the business. We can look at your factory's output history. It's tied to an objective reality.
But wait, couldn't a buyer just abuse that? Like if laptop prices triple, couldn't I suddenly say, oh, my requirement is now 10,000 laptops instead of 10 just to resell them?
The UCC anticipated that. The limitation is that amounts demanded cannot be unreasonably disproportionate to any stated estimates or normal past dealings. It requires good faith. You can't just massively exploit a market shift.
That makes sense. But let me push back on something. What if the terms aren't completely missing, but they're just like really vague? Like we sign a contract that says profits will be split on a liberal basis.
Oh, that is a classic trap. That's a fatal flaw.
Really? Why?
Because a missing term is just a blank space the UCC can fill with an objective market rate. But a vague term actively shows the court that you didn't want the standard rate. You wanted some special liberal arrangement.
But the court has no idea what liberal means to us.
Exactly. They can't guess what your subjective definition is. So vague terms destroy an offer, though sometimes part performance can cure it later, but generally vague is bad, missing is curable.
Wow. So trapping the listener between a vague term and a missing term is a classic MBE move.
It absolutely is. Be very careful with phrasing on the exam.
Okay, so offers aren't immortal. We know how to build them, but how do we kill them? Let's talk about the death of an offer, or termination.
Offers can be terminated in a few ways, mainly by the actions of the parties or by operation of law. Let's start with revocation.
That's when the offeror takes it back.
Right. The general rule is the offeror can revoke at any time before acceptance. Direct revocation is easy. I call you and say the deal is off. It's effective the moment you receive it.
But there's also indirect revocation, right? Which sounds super sneaky.
It's heavily tested. Indirect revocation happens when the offeree learns, from a reliable source, that the offeror did something completely inconsistent with the offer staying open.
So if you offer to sell me your car, give me a week to think about it. But then on Wednesday, my buddy, who is the president of the local car club, tells me he just bought your car and it's in his garage.
Exactly. That buddy is a reliable source. And selling it to him is inconsistent with selling it to you. The moment you hear that, the offer to you is legally dead. You can't rush over and try to accept it.
That makes sense. So that's the offeror killing it. What about the offeree? That's rejection.
Yes, express rejection terminates it immediately. No thanks.
Yeah.
But the tricky part is counter-offers.
Okay, let's do a scenario. You offer to sell me your house for $300,000. I say, I'll take the house, but only if you add a brand new air conditioning system.
You just kill the original offer.
I did.
Yes. A counteroffer acts as both a rejection of the original offer and a brand new offer. The roles are flipped. Now you are the offer.
Wait, what if you say no to the AC and I say, okay, fine, I'll just take it for $300,000 without the AC?
Too late. The original offer is dead. You can't resurrect it. You'd have to make a new offer to buy it for $300,000, and I can say no.
Oh, man. So what if I just wanted to negotiate without killing the deal? What if I ask, would you consider lowering the price? Or maybe throwing in the AC?
That is a mere inquiry. It is exploratory. Because you framed it as a question and didn't firmly condition your acceptance, the original offer survives.
Oh, that is such a fine line.
It is, and the MBE will test that exact distinction. Counteroffer versus mere inquiry.
So those are the actions of the parties. What about operation of law?
Death or insanity of either party terminates the offer instantly.
Even if I don't know you died. Like I mail you an acceptance letter, but you had a heart attack an hour ago.
Exactly. The offer died with you. Same goes for the destruction of the subject matter, like if the house burns down or supervening illegality, like the government suddenly bans the sale of the item, instantly dead.
Okay, wait. Building off that revocation point, you said an offer can revoke any time before acceptance. Is there any way for the offeree to stop them, like to shield the offer and keep it alive?
Yes, this is an absolute MBE hotspot. There are 4 ways to create an irrevocable offer. 4 specific shields.
Okay, listeners, grab a pen. Let's break down the 4 shields. Shield number 1.
The option contract. This is where the offeree pays actual consideration, like a cash deposit, to keep the offer open.
So if you offer me your farm and promise to keep it open for a month, you can normally just revoke that promise tomorrow because it's a naked promise.
Right.
But if I say, here's $500 to keep it open for a month and you take it, now we have a mini contract just for the time.
Exactly. You bought the time? That's an option contract. Shield number 2 is a UCC special, the merchant's firm offer under Section 2205.
Let me guess, this fixes a problem with the common law for businesses.
You nailed it. Merchants need to be able to rely on written price quotes without paying for an option every single time. So if a merchant makes an offer in a signed writing and explicitly gives assurances that it will be held open, it is irrevocable. No consideration needed.
But they can't just be trapped forever, right?
No. The absolute maximum time a merchant's firm offer can stay irrevocable is 3 months. Even if the paper says guaranteed for 6 months, it's only legally irrevocable for 3.
That's a huge trap for the exam. 3 months max. Okay, what's shield number 3?
Detrimental reliance. This usually comes up in construction bids. A general contractor is putting together a huge $10 million bid to build a school. They get an offer from a subcontractor, a plumber, to do the pipes for $50,000.
So the general contractor plugs that $50,000 into their spreadsheet and submits the big master bid.
Right, and they win the project. But then the plumber calls and says, actually, if I revoke my offer, it's going to be $80,000.
Oh, that's brutal. The general contractor is already locked into the master contract based on that $50,000 number?
Exactly. The general contractor relied on the offer to their detriment. The plumber reasonably should have expected that reliance, so the law steps in, applies promissory estoppel, and makes the plumber's offer irrevocable for a reasonable time.
Justice is served. I love it. Okay, the final shield, number 4.
Beginning performance on a unilateral contract.
Unilateral meaning an offer that can only be accepted by actually doing the action, not by promising to do it, like a lost dog reward.
Right. Under the old rules, if I offered you $1,000 to paint my house and you painted 99% of it, I could walk outside and say, I revoke, right before you finish the last brushstroke.
That's cartoonishly evil, and you'd owe me nothing.
Under the old, strict common law, yes, because full performance was required for acceptance. But modern law fixes this. The moment you begin actual performance, the offer becomes irrevocable. You get a reasonable time to finish.
Okay, let me push back on this because I know the bar examiners are sneaky. What if I accept the offer to paint the house, and I drive to the hardware store, buy a ladder, buy the paint, and drive back? Have I begun performance? Is the shield up?
No, and that is exactly what they will test. Mere preparation to perform does not activate the shield. Buying paint is preparation.
Oh, wow.
Putting the paint on the siding is beginning performance. Now, your preparation might give you a reliance claim to get your money back for the paint, but the offer itself is not irrevocable yet.
That is such a crucial distinction. Preparation versus actual performance. So we have option contracts, merchant's firm offers, detrimental reliance, and beginning performance. Memorize those four.
Absolutely. So let's assume our offer has survived all of that. It's valid. It hasn't been terminated. The shield's held. Now, how do we lock in the deal?
The power of acceptance.
Yes. Acceptance must be a manifestation of assent to the offer's terms. And importantly, only the person addressed in the offer can accept it.
Right. I can't just overhear you offering to sell your car to someone else and yell, I accept, across the room.
Correct. But here is the really interesting part. The offeree must actually know about the offer to accept it.
Oh, this brings up one of my favorite scenarios from the sources, the lost briefcase.
It's a classic.
So a guy loses a briefcase full of money. He puts up posters all over town offering a $10,000 reward. I'm just walking through the park, totally oblivious to the posters, and I find the briefcase. I look inside, find his ID, and I return it to him just because I'm a good person. I go home, turn on the news, and see a story about the reward. Can I run back and demand my 10 grand?
Legally, no.
It hurts.
It feels unfair, but there is no contract. Mutual assent requires a bargain for exchange. You cannot accept an offer you don't know exists, even if you perfectly perform the requested action. Your return of the briefcase was legally a gratuity, a gift.
Brutal but logical. Okay, what about the difference between accepting unilateral versus bilateral contracts?
Unilateral, as we said, must be accepted by full performance. And usually you have to give notice that you finished, unless the offerer would naturally find out anyway. Bilateral contracts of promise for a promise just require communication of your acceptance.
Can silence ever be acceptance? Like if I say, if I don't hear from you by Friday, we have a deal.
Generally, no. You can't force a contract on someone by making them speak up to reject it. And there's always but if prior dealings make it reasonable, silence works.
Like if a supplier drops off fresh tomatoes to my restaurant every single Monday, and I just take them into the kitchen and use them without saying a word, knowing I'll get billed.
Yes, keeping a benefit knowing payment is expected, based on history, binds you.
Okay, let's stop and recap for the listener. Offeree absolutely must have knowledge of the offer. And for bilateral contracts, the acceptance usually has to be explicitly communicated. But what about the terms of the acceptance? This is where things get really messy, right?
This is the UCC battleground, Article 2 acceptance. Very important for the MBE. Let's start with the common law baseline, the mirror image rule.
All right, so under common law real estate, services the acceptance has to perfectly match the offer. A total mirror image. If I change even one tiny detail, like the closing date, it's not an acceptance anymore, it's a counteroffer.
Exactly. It's clean, but it's rigid. But the modern business world of buying and selling goods under the UCC, it's chaotic. Which brings us to prompt shipment.
Okay, how does that work?
If a buyer sends an offer to buy goods for prompt shipment, the seller can accept in two ways. They can send a promise to ship, or they can just put the goods in a box and ship them. Both form a contract.
But what if the seller ships the wrong goods? Like, I order blue widgets and they ship red widgets.
That is a phenomenal question. By shipping the red widgets, the seller has simultaneously accepted your offer to form a contract, and they have breached that exact same contract by sending the wrong stuff. You can sue them immediately.
Wow, acceptance and breach at the exact same moment? But wait, what if the seller knew they were out of blue widgets and sent the red ones just trying to help me out, hoping I'd accept them?
The accommodation shipment. If the seller ships the wrong goods, but includes a note saying, hey, we're out of blue, sending red as an accommodation, hope this works, the legal reality changes entirely.
Really? What does it become?
It is no longer an acceptance and a breach. The shipment with the note is treated as a counteroffer. You, the buyer, can either accept the red widgets or reject them and send them back. But there is no breach of contract because no contract was formed yet.
Oh, that is so tricky. The note changes everything.
Yes, the notification is key. Now let's tackle the biggest monster in Article 2, the Battle of the Forms, Section 2207.
Yes, because the mirror image rule sounds neat, but in reality, corporations don't talk. They just send pre-printed forms at each other.
Exactly. A buyer sends a purchase order with their own boilerplate terms on the back. The seller ships the goods and sends an invoice with completely different boilerplate terms on the back. Under the mirror image rule, they would never have a contract.
Because the forms never match.
Right. So Section 2207 throws out the mirror image rule. If a merchant replies with an acceptance that has new or different terms, it's still a valid acceptance. A contract is formed.
Okay, so I always compare Battle of the Forms to two people trying to order a pizza. They're handing each other completely different menus with different rules. The buyer says pepperoni, but no late fees. The seller says pepperoni, but yes, late fees. The law basically says, look, you both agree on the pizza. We have a contract. We'll figure out the toppings later.
That is a perfect analogy. The contract is formed immediately. The only question is, whose boilerplate terms win? What happens to the new terms the seller snuck into their invoice?
Right.
If both parties are merchants, the new terms automatically become part of the contract.
Automatically. That seems dangerous.
It is, which is why there are 3 firewalls that block the new terms. They don't enter the contract.
Yeah.
If, 1, they materially alter the deal like a massive surprise change to liability. 2, if the original offer explicitly limited acceptance to its exact terms. Or 3, if the offeror objects to the new terms within a reasonable time.
Okay, so if the new term is minor and no one objects, it slides in. But what if the forms directly contradict each other? Like the buyer's form says New York law governs, and the seller's form says California law governs.
Most courts apply the knockout rule. The conflicting terms mutually destroy each other. They vanish.
They just obliterate each other? Then what fills the gap?
The UCC gap fillers drop in to fix the hole.
That's incredibly elegant. But wait, what if the paperwork is just a complete disaster and legally 2207 says no contract was formed on paper at all?
That brings us to contract by conduct. Even if the forms fail, if the seller shipped the goods and the buyer paid for them, if they acted like there was a deal, the law recognizes a contract. The terms are just whatever the forms actually happen to agree on, plus the UCC gap fillers.
Contract by conduct. The UCC just wants to save the deal at all cost. Listeners, Battle of the Forms, accommodation shipments, these are incredibly high yield for your exam.
So we know how to accept, we know how to handle messy forms, but when exactly does the contract legally spark into existence?
Oh, timing. The mailbox rule.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about revocations. We said revocations by the offerer are only effective upon receipt. You have to actually get the message.
Right.
But the mailbox rule says acceptance by the offeree is effective upon dispatch. The moment you put that stamped, properly addressed letter in the mailbox, the contract exists.
Okay, wait. Let's run a race to the mailbox scenario. This is the classic timing trap. Let's say you offer to sell me your car. On Tuesday, you change your mind and put a revocation letter in the mail. But on Wednesday morning, before your letter arrives, I put my acceptance letter in the mail.
We have a contract.
We do. Even though you mailed your revocation first.
Yes, because your acceptance was effective on dispatch Wednesday morning. My revocation isn't effective until you receive it, which wouldn't be until maybe Thursday. Wednesday beats Thursday.
Wow. Okay, what if I'm the one messing around? I receive your offer. I immediately mail a rejection letter, but then I sleep on it, change my mind, and the next day I mail an acceptance letter. Now both are heading toward you.
Ah, you broke the rule. If you mail a rejection first, the mailbox rule no longer applies. It becomes a pure race. Whichever letter reaches the offerer first controls the outcome.
What if I send the acceptance first, so the contract is legally formed on dispatch, but then I panic and I overnight a rejection letter so it arrives before my acceptance?
The mailbox rule usually still applies, so the acceptance wins. The contract is valid. Unless
What?
Unless the offerer receives the rejection first and detrimentally relies on it. Like if I get your overnighted rejection, assume the deal's dead, and immediately sell the car to someone else, you can't come back later and sue me when your acceptance finally arrives. You're stopped.
That makes perfect sense. Equity stepping in again. Okay, we have a tiny bit of time left. Let's do a mini dive on options, just the basics.
Sure. In an auction, the bidder is making the offer. The auctioneer accepts when the hammer falls. The sale is complete.
What's the difference between with reserve and without reserve?
With reserve, Means the auctioneer can withdraw the goods at any time before the hammer falls, if they don't like the price. That is the default rule. Without reserve means once the bidding starts, the item must be sold to the highest bidder, no matter how low the price is.
Got it. Listeners, just remember that mailbox rule timing, revocation on receipt, acceptance on dispatch is tested constantly.
Always track the dates carefully on the exam.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of terrain today.
We really have.
We started with the objective intent, tossing out the telepathic meeting of the minds. We navigated the anatomy of an offer, surviving the advertisement traps. We broke down the essential terms, contrasting the rigid common law with the beautiful gap-filling magic of the UCC.
We killed offers with revocations and counteroffers, and we shielded them with option contracts, merchant firm offers, detrimental reliance, and beginning performance.
We waded through the chaos of the UCC battle of the forms, and we ran the race to the mailbox. These concepts are absolutely guaranteed to show up on your MBE.
Guaranteed.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We talked about how silence can sometimes be acceptance, right? Like the chef taking the tomatoes every Monday.
Right, if prior dealings make it reasonable.
But think about the ambiguity there. How many times do you actually have to do business with someone simply taking the goods without saying a word before your silence legally binds you to a deal you never explicitly agreed to? Is it 3 weeks, 10 weeks? Where exactly is that invisible line between just a habit and a legally enforceable yes?
It's a slightly terrifying thought. The law is just drawing line based on what some hypothetical reasonable person thinks.
Exactly. Something to chew on next time you accept a delivery. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into mutual assent. Good luck studying, master these rules, and we will see you next time.